Ever notice how some of the things that make us happy are kind of like, I don't know, like a sugar rush? Super intense, but then they just disappear.
Yeah, totally.
That's what we're going to be diving into today. Like, is happiness just chasing all those fleeting pleasures, or is there something more, something a bit, you know,
Deeper.
deeper, yeah,
Yeah.
and like more enduring? Kind of joy that sticks around even when that initial, like, woohoo, fades away.
That's such a great question. And it really gets at like the core of what we even mean by happiness. You've probably heard of the hedonic treadmill, right?
Uh, yeah, I've heard the term.
So that's that feeling of always chasing pleasure, but never really ever reaching that lasting satisfaction.
Okay.
And there's actually a reason for that.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Let's break this hedonic treadmill down a bit. Is it like always needing bigger and better things to feel happy? Like, is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, it's kind of like that. Imagine you're on a treadmill, putting in tons of effort, but not really getting anywhere.
Okay, I can picture that.
So you get like a new gadget or a promotion or like go crazy on a shopping spree. You feel that surge of happiness, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But then it just fades.
It always fades.
And you're back to where you started and you're just craving that next hit of excitement.
So what's actually going on in our brains when we're stuck on this treadmill? Is it like some kind of like chemical reaction?
Yeah, so it's super fascinating that this is really deeply rooted in our neurobiology.
Oh, wow, really?
So when we experience something pleasurable, our brain releases dopamine, right?
Right.
And that's like a neurotransmitter associated with reward and motivation.
Dopamine rewards motivation. Okay.
But here's the catch. Our brains are like incredibly adaptable.
Oh, how so?
So the more we expose ourselves to a certain pleasure, the less dopamine we release and the less intense that pleasure becomes.
So we're constantly chasing that initial dopamine rush, but our brains are actually kind of working against us,
Exactly.
making it like harder and harder to get that same level of satisfaction.
And so this constant chase for fleeting pleasures, this hedonic happiness, it can actually lead to, well, a sense of emptiness and dissatisfaction in the long run.
Oh, interesting.
It's like trying to quench your thirst with salt water. The more you drink, the thirstier you become.
That's a great analogy. If hedonic happiness is kind of like this temporary high, is there a different kind of happiness then? Something, I don't know, a little more substantial, a little more lasting?
Yes, absolutely. And that brings us to what's called eudaimonic happiness.
Eudaimonic happiness, okay.
And it's a concept that goes all the way back to ancient Greek philosophy. And this type of happiness, it's not about chasing those fleeting pleasures. It's about living a life of meaning and purpose.
Oh, okay.
It's about like aligning your actions with your values, pursuing personal growth, and contributing to something bigger than yourself.
So instead of that dopamine rush, eudaimonic happiness is more about finding fulfillment in like aligning with our core beliefs and pursuing goals that have like lasting meaning.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
And while, hedonic happiness might bring those like moments of joy,
Sure.
eudaimonic happiness, that's what gives our lives a sense of direction and purpose. It's like the compass that guides us toward a deeper sense of satisfaction and well-being.
This is making so much sense. It's like building a house on a solid foundation of like values and purpose, right?
Yes.
Versus chasing butterflies of fleeting pleasure.
I love that. That's such a great analogy. And what's so fascinating is that there's growing scientific evidence to support this whole idea. This idea that eudaimonic happiness is actually linked to greater well-being and life satisfaction.
Oh, wow. Okay, you mentioned scientific evidence. Are there any specific studies like that illustrate this difference between like hedonic and eudaimonic happiness?
Yeah, there's one that comes to mind that really highlights the power of eudaimonic happiness. So researchers, they gave participants money, right?
Okay, yeah.
And they asked them to spend it either on themselves or on other people.
Okay.
And guess what? The people who spent the money on others reported feeling significantly happier afterwards.
Oh, wow, that's so interesting.
Yeah, so it seems like even small acts of kindness can contribute to that, like deeper sense of happiness.
It's really incredible. So it suggests that true happiness might be less about acquiring material things or indulging in like fleeting pleasures and more about fostering connection and like contributing to the well-being of others.
Exactly. And what's even more remarkable is this isn't limited to adults, this like inclination towards finding joy in giving.
Wait, are you telling me there's research on this with children?
Yeah, so researchers found that toddlers, like as young as 2 years old, they actually experience more joy when giving treats to others than when they receive treats themselves.
Wow, that's amazing. So, like, it totally challenges that idea of humans being inherently selfish and only programmed for instant gratification. Maybe we're wired for something a bit more meaningful.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Like, perhaps there's this deeper part of us that actually yearns for connection and finds fulfillment in contributing to something bigger than ourselves. And this idea actually isn't entirely new. It resonates with ancient wisdom as well.
Oh, I love it when we can connect modern research to ancient wisdom. Tell me more about, like, that ancient perspective.
Okay, so if we look at ancient Greek mythology, you've got the gods Apollo and Dionysus.
Okay?
And they provide a really interesting lens for understanding these two types of happiness. So, Apollo, he's the god of reason, order, and self control.
Uh-huh.
And he represents the pursuit of knowledge, long-term goals, and mastering skills. Like he embodies that eudaimonic drive, striving for excellence and living a life guided by purpose.
Okay, so Apollo's like the more deliberate and purposeful approach to happiness.
Yes.
And Dionysus.
Dionysus, the god of wine, revelry, ecstasy, he embodies that pursuit of pleasure and immediate gratification.
So Dionysus represents that, like, hedonic side, seeking those bursts of joy and excitement.
Exactly. But even in ancient Greece, they recognized the importance of balance. Both Apollo and Dionysus were considered essential parts of a fulfilling life.
It seems like finding that sweet spot, that balance between those two forces, reason and passion, self-control and indulgence, might be key to experiencing true happiness.
I think you're absolutely right.
It's not about denying ourselves pleasure, right? It's about ensuring that it doesn't become the sole focus of our happiness.
You're exactly right. And this reminds me of the Buddhist perspective on happiness.
Oh, yes, I was actually curious about that. You mentioned earlier the concept of dukkha. Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, so Buddhist philosophy really delves deeply into the nature of suffering, or dukkha, and it emphasizes how craving and attachment to pleasure can actually lead to unhappiness in the long run.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. So it's like we get caught in this cycle of wanting more and more and never truly feeling satisfied because that satisfaction is always so temporary.
Exactly. It's like trying to grasp smoke. The harder you try to hold on to it, the quicker it dissipates.
Okay, so then how do we break free from that cycle? Does Buddhism offer any insights into, cultivating more lasting happiness?
Yeah, so Buddhism suggests that true happiness lies in finding contentment and joy in the present moment, regardless of external circumstances.
Okay.
It's about recognizing the impermanence of those pleasurable experiences and cultivating a sense of inner peace. Inner peace that isn't dependent on outside factors.
This is all incredibly insightful. So it seems like a balanced approach is key, acknowledging the role of pleasure in our lives, but not letting it become the sole driver of our happiness. We need to cultivate those deeper sources of meaning and purpose that provide more lasting fulfillment. But, like, how do we actually do that? What are some, like, practical steps we can take to actually move beyond this hedonic treadmill and cultivate more of this eudaimonic happiness?
That's a great question, and it's one we're going to explore in more detail as we continue our deep dive into happiness.
Well, I am eager to hear more about those strategies, and I bet our listeners are too. Okay, so we've established that lasting happiness isn't just about chasing those, like, fleeting pleasures.
Right.
It's about, like, cultivating a much deeper sense of meaning and purpose in life. But how do we actually do that? Where do we even begin?
Well, there are several, I think, really powerful practices that can help us shift our focus from those fleeting pleasures to deeper meaning.
Okay.
One of the most effective strategies is cultivating mindfulness and gratitude.
Mindfulness and gratitude, those are two practices I hear a lot about. But, like, how do they actually help us cultivate lasting happiness?
Yeah, so mindfulness is about becoming more aware of our thoughts, our feelings, and sensations in the present moment without judgment.
Okay.
It's like hitting the pause button on that constant stream of thoughts and simply observing what's happening like within us and around us.
Okay, so instead of getting swept away by, like, our thoughts and emotions, mindfulness allows us to, like, step back and observe them without getting caught up in the drama.
Exactly. And when we practice mindfulness, we start to appreciate the simple things, things we might normally take for granted,
Okay.
like a warm cup of coffee, a beautiful sunset, the feeling of the breeze on our skin. It's about noticing the beauty and richness of like each moment, even in the midst of, our busy lives.
Right. Okay. And how does gratitude fit into this? Is it just about, like, feeling thankful for all the good things in our lives?
So gratitude goes beyond simply acknowledging those good things. It's about actively appreciating and savoring those things, allowing ourselves to like really feel a deep sense of thankfulness for what we have.
So it's not just a mental exercise. It's about really feeling that gratitude, like in our hearts.
Exactly. And research has shown that practicing gratitude can actually increase our levels of happiness and well-being.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it helps us shift our focus away from what we lack and toward what we already have. And that fosters a sense of contentment and abundance.
It's like we're training our brains to, I don't know, like focus on the positive instead of dwelling on the negative.
Exactly. And it's not just about feeling good. Studies have also shown that gratitude can actually improve our physical health,
Really?
like boost our immune system and even help us sleep better.
Wow, that's impressive. So mindfulness and gratitude aren't just some fluffy feel-good ideas.
Right.
There's like real science backing up their benefits.
Absolutely. And these practices are accessible to everyone. You don't need any special equipment or training. You can start by incorporating just a few minutes of mindfulness or gratitude into your daily routine.
Okay, so mindfulness and gratitude are definitely going on my list of happiness-boosting strategies.
Awesome.
What else can we do to cultivate that deeper, more meaningful kind of happiness?
Yeah, another crucial element is to connect and contribute to something larger than yourself.
I can see how that ties into this whole eudaimonic happiness thing, right?
Right.
Like being connected to something beyond our individual needs and desires.
Exactly. Humans are social creatures. We thrive on connection, and we find a deep sense of purpose in contributing to the well-being of others.
It's like that feeling you get when you volunteer your time or help a friend in need. Or, I don't know, just even like engage in acts of kindness. It just like warms your heart and makes you feel like you're making a difference.
And that sense of connection and belonging, it's essential for our overall well-being. Remember that study we discussed earlier?
Yeah,
The one showing that lack of social connection is more detrimental to health than obesity, smoking, or high blood pressure.
wow. Yeah, that was a powerful one.
Yeah, so it's a reminder that nurturing our relationships and finding ways to give back to our community are like essential for our happiness and well-being.
Totally. And, when we connect this to the bigger picture, cultivating a sense of purpose and meaning in life, that could be like incredibly empowering, right? It
Yes,
gives us a sense of direction and helps us, I don't know, navigate the inevitable challenges that like life throws our way.
for sure.
But finding that sense of purpose, that can sometimes feel overwhelming, right? Especially in today's world with like so many choices and possibilities. How do we even begin to figure out what our purpose is?
You're absolutely right. It can be like a daunting task.
Yeah.
But there's this concept called the ultimate good.
Okay.
And it might offer some guidance. It stems from the work of Aristotle, and it suggests that true happiness and fulfillment that comes from aligning our lives with our core values and pursuing a purpose that, transcends our individual needs and desires.
So it's about identifying what truly matters to us, what resonates with our deepest values, and then like striving to live a life that reflects those values. It's like finding that North Star, right, that guides
Yes.
our actions and decision.
Exactly. It's about living a life that feels authentic and meaningful, where our actions actually reflect our beliefs, and that creates a sense of like harmony and integrity within ourselves. It's about finding that thing that like lights us up, that makes us feel like we're living in accordance with our true selves.
I love that image, finding our North Star and like aligning our lives with it. But how do we actually do that? It seems like such a big abstract concept.
It is a big concept, and it's a very personal journey. There's no like one size fits all answer, but there are some questions we can ask ourselves to help us, like hover our ultimate good.
Okay.
What are our passions? What activities bring us joy and make us feel fully alive? What kind of impact do we want to make on the world?
It's like piecing together a puzzle, using clues from our own lives to uncover that, like bigger picture of what gives us a sense of purpose.
What a beautiful analogy. And as you start to connect those dots, you might notice a shift in your perspective. You might find that like activities that once seemed important start to lose their appeal and like new passions and interests emerge. It's about being open to exploring different paths and allowing yourself to evolve as you gain like a deeper understanding of yourself and what truly matters to you.
This is also insightful. It's like we're shifting from a mindset of what can I get to what can I give,
Yes.
right?
And that shift in perspective can be incredibly liberating. It's about moving beyond the pursuit of fleeting pleasures and like tapping into a deeper wellspring of joy and fulfillment that comes from living a life of meaning and purpose. It's about finding that sweet spot between Apollo and Dionysus, embracing both reason and passion, self-control and indulgence, and creating a life that feels both joyful and meaningful.
This has been such an enlightening conversation. I'm already feeling inspired to like start incorporating these ideas into my own life. But I imagine some listeners might be feeling a bit overwhelmed. Where do we even begin to put all of this into practice?
That's a great point. It's one thing to understand these concepts, but it's another to actually implement them in our daily lives. So let's talk about some practical steps we can take to actually make these ideas a reality.
I'm all ears. Let's break it down into manageable steps. Okay, so we've talked about a lot, right? Like from the whole hedonic treadmill thing to Apollo and Dionysus to the Buddhist perspective on finding contentment, in the moment.
Yeah.
But how do we actually bridge that gap, between understanding all this cool stuff and actually putting it into practice? Like in real life, in our daily lives.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, it's one thing to talk about mindfulness and gratitude and connection and purpose and all that, but it's a whole other thing to actually make it part of our lives, especially with, everything going on. The good news is it doesn't have to be this huge life overhaul.
Okay, good.
We can start small, take manageable steps.
Okay, I like that. Starting small
Hmm.
feels way less intimidating than, trying to change everything at once. So what kind of small changes are we talking about?
So one really powerful practice is just setting aside 5 minutes every day for mindfulness. Just find a quiet spot, close your eyes, and focus on your breath. Notice the sensations as you breathe in and out. And when your mind wanders, which it definitely will,
Oh, yeah.
just gently guide it back to your breath.
Just 5 minutes. That feels doable, even for someone with a crazy busy schedule. And I imagine that, I don't know, those 5 minutes could have a ripple effect throughout the day, right?
Yeah, totally.
Making us more present and aware in, other areas of our lives.
Exactly. Even short bursts of mindfulness can make a big difference. It's like creating a pause button, in our busy minds, allowing us to step off that hamster wheel for a second and reconnect with the present moment. And you can actually combine that mindfulness practice with gratitude.
Oh, how so?
So during those 5 minutes, think about 3 things you're grateful for. It could be anything, even small things, like a warm cup of tea or a sunny day or, I don't know, a kind gesture from a stranger.
I love that. Combining mindfulness and gratitude, like a 2-for-1 happiness boost.
Exactly.
So what are some other small steps we can take to kind of cultivate those deeper connections and contribute to something, larger than ourselves?
Yeah, so start by reaching out to someone you haven't talked to in a while. Send a text, make a phone call, maybe write a handwritten note.
Oh, nice.
It's amazing how something so simple can really brighten someone's day and strengthen that connection. Or volunteer, even an hour a week at a local charity or organization that means something to you. Even these small acts of service can make a big difference in other people's lives and bring a sense of purpose to your own.
Those are all great ideas. Small, manageable actions that can have this ripple effect, right, on our
Totally.
own well-being and the well-being of others. Like that saying, be the change you want to see in the world.
Exactly. And as you start making these practices part of your life, you might notice a shift in your perspective. Those fleeting pleasures, they might not seem as appealing anymore.
Yeah.
And you might find more joy and satisfaction in those deeper, more meaningful experiences. It's like you're recalibrating your happiness set point.
So it's not about denying ourselves those hedonistic pleasures completely. It's more about finding a balance,
Yeah.
right? Recognizing that, both types of happiness, they have their place in, a fulfilling life.
You got it. It's about embracing both Apollo and Dionysus, recognizing that reason and passion, self-control and indulgence, they're all essential parts of a well-rounded life. But by cultivating those sources of eudaimonic happiness, mindfulness, gratitude, connection, purpose, all that, we're creating this foundation, right,
Yeah.
of joy and meaning that can sustain us through, well, all of life's ups and downs.
This has been such an eye-opening deep dive. I feel like I have a whole new understanding of happiness and what it really means to live a joyful, fulfilling life. And I hope our listeners are feeling inspired too.
It's been such a pleasure exploring these ideas with you, and I encourage all of you listening to, embark on your own journey, discover what true happiness means to you.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's leave our listeners with a final thought to kind of ponder. If true happiness is already within us, what are we waiting for?
What a beautiful question. It's a reminder that happiness isn't something we have to search for outside of ourselves.
Right.
It's about tapping into that inner wellspring of joy and letting it flow into every aspect of our lives.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into happiness. We hope you've enjoyed the journey. And remember, the path to lasting joy is a journey, not a destination. So keep exploring, keep growing, and keep diving deep.